What's going on, good people, man? This is your boy Small Soldier right here, back in action once again. This time here, want to talk with you guys about a really great game called Remnant from the Ashes and discuss why this game is definitely worth your time. So with that on, let's get started. So, to give everyone an overview of what this game is about, Remnant from the Ashes was developed by Gunfire Games, the same folks that made Darksiders 3. And like Darksiders 3, it does share some artistic similarities. If I had to give a brief description about Remnant, I would say that it's basically Dark Souls with guns, mixed in with some Borderlands. And yes, everything nowadays is described as Dark Souls with something. Bit of a lazy way to describe a game, but this one here really fits. The reason why it reminds me of Dark Souls is because it shares some overlapping game mechanics. For example, you have resting points that act as shrines and repopulate the enemies in a particular area when you interact with it. And you have a dragon heart that acts as your Estus Flask from Dark Souls and replenishes your health once you use it. Now, some people do refer to this game as a looter shooter. I wouldn't necessarily call it that because you don't really get much loot when you shoot and defeat enemies other than from bosses. However, enemies do frequently drop items to help you upgrade your weapons and your armor, and the materials bosses drop allow you to make special weapons, and that's where it does kind of remind me of Borderlands. A lot of the weapons are more creative in their execution than in most other shooters, and so you have some really unique weapons available to you throughout the game. Something else that is also very interesting about this title is the way in which it is structured, in that almost all the levels are procedurally designed, so very few people will have the same level in their playthroughs. Also, many of the bosses are randomized, so multiple playthroughs are required in order to face all of the bosses. Now, speaking of playthroughs, you can either play co-op with a partner or ride completely solo. I played totally solo, and my first playthrough took me about 52 hours from start to finish. There's no new game plus in the traditional sense. Basically, once you're done with everything, you can reset or re-roll the game world and start from the beginning as your character progress carries over. In terms of story, you play as a hero on a journey fighting off an evil race called the Root, and these root-like tree creatures done jack the place up. So you have to travel from realm to realm, learning their secrets and try to fight them back. You do interact with NPCs in various locations, and you do find journals that give you some insight onto what's going on. I would say that the story isn't as ambiguous as a Souls game, but it isn't 100% straightforward either. It's somewhere in the middle. So if you like putting together pieces of a story, you might find this aspect very enjoyable. And speaking about enjoyable, I really enjoyed how the shooting feels in this game. It feels very responsive, smooth, natural, and to be honest, probably the best feeling third-person shooter game I've ever played. The combat really stands out and was the main reason why I kept coming back and was so eager to jump back in. Something else that I found enjoyable was the variety in the level design. You got sewer areas, desert-like areas, jungle swamp areas, technologically advanced areas, and a whole lot more. And so for me, I always enjoy when games take you on a journey in which the locations are different and provide you with visual variety along the way. Same thing with the enemies. There are a bunch of different enemy types in this game, and that's another thing I really appreciate. I kinda get bored in games when you fight the same 5 enemies from beginning to end with no variety. You gotta mix it up every now and again. Here, they probably got over 30 different enemy types, each with their own attacks and require different strategies on how to defeat them. And finally, speaking about enemies, we gotta talk about the bosses. Now, the bosses is where this game gets really difficult in my opinion. Typically, when you fight a main boss, he usually got a gang of people with him, so every boss got their own mob, and initially I really wasn't feeling this, man, because the difficulty would suddenly spike and ratchet up out of nowhere. The bosses themselves are already hard enough. Now you adding in 20 extra jokers, things could get really annoying. Though, after getting good, I didn't mind it so much, man. There are still some people out there that really dislike this aspect of the game, and I can understand that. But for me, after the first main boss, it didn't really bother me as much anymore. And like other challenging games, defeating the boss really provides you with that strong sense of accomplishment. So, to wrap everything up, Remnant from the Ashes is an awesome game with a great shooting system, diverse environments, has interesting enemies and bosses, and shares some things in common with Dark Souls. All of these things are why it's definitely worth checking out. So folks, that is pretty much that, man. Just wanted to talk with you guys about why Remnant from the Ashes is a really great game. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comments below. As always, I appreciate the support. And with that there, fellas, man, I guess I will see you guys in the next video.